Welcome back to the French Rugby Podcast with me, Tim Groves, former Clermont and France hooker Benjamin Claassen, and ex-Bayonne, Montpellier and Casbah Road Johnny Beattie. We'll have a look back at the semi-finals in the top 14 shortly and have a chat with someone who was involved in one of them. And we'll preview the top 14 final as well. But how are you two doing before we get into that? Because it was Father's Day at the weekend, wasn't it? So did you have a good day?
Happy Father's Day. Ben, you look shocked. Was it not Father's Day?
It was Father's Day. Yeah. No, we had a lovely time. Oh, but yeah, I was just being gentle enough to say that when the man's got 3 kids, you should be the one who's more of a father than I am. But I'm sure you had plenty of little gifts and stuff. Just make everything worth it. It makes those long, boring nights of waking up 1,000 times, feeling tired the next morning, and then you just get a cute little card, most definitely a sort of a painted handprint, all that stuff, and then your heart melts, and you're like, yeah, that's beautiful. So I've got my 2 little ones were kind enough to give me some beautiful little things that made me feel very special, very precious, and then we had a good family day at my wife's in-laws, so just lovely, yeah.
How long did that feeling last for? Like 2 hours later, it's back to carnage. I was the exact same. So I got back down from Paris Sunday. They all picked me up from the train station. I felt like a bit of a child myself, actually, being picked up by my 3 children. But the same, they'd made I think they do it in school, like with maîtresse, with their teacher. They do like handprints and face prints and portraits of some drawings that did not look like me, but they were me apparently, and all in French, which is quite cool. So like bon fête papa, and so it was really cool. Nice pair of new socks from the youngest one, Finn, 7 months old, getting me socks, setting a stall out early. So no, it was cool. It was good fun, but as I said, 3 hours later, it's forgotten. That warm fuzzy feeling is gone, and you are back to the carnage. What about you, Tim?
What did we do? We went to the farm park, looked at some goats, Johnny. That was about as good as it got. That and an ice cream.
That's what we did. I got straight back and went to the zoo as well. So there you go. The same.
Imagine those poor goats who had to look at you for Father's Day. Right?
And Johnny, presumably you were back in dad mode because you'd been off for the rest of the weekend working. So
yeah, that's the strange bit, is you sort of go away and get a little bit of a holiday. But obviously the game's finished late. You then have to get up at 6 a.m. and get the train back down. So you're absolutely shagged by the time you get back. But they haven't seen you for 3 days, so they don't care.
Yeah.
And neither is my missus, because she's obviously here by herself and needs all the help she can get with no grandparents or anything around. So no, you're straight back to the zoo. Ice creams for us as well. Feeding the goats popcorn, the llamas popcorn. Flamingo's not allowed to give them popcorn. But no, it was good. It was good fun. Good crack at the zoo in La Benne. And then it all sort of fell apart around dinner time, I think. Back to the usual, back to standard service.
And you're a busy boy at the moment as well, because you're coming back to join Benji and I in the UK for the summer, are you?
So doing this weekend's final, and then after that getting back. So we haven't been back to the UK since the first lockdown. So that's 18, 19 months. We now got a 7-month-old that hasn't seen any of our family. So we're trying to book flights the first week in July to get back to Scotland and see everyone. So it'd just be cool. My little sister's also pregnant. Haven't seen her pregnant at all during the time. So it'd just be great to get back, see grandparents, see cousins, uncles, aunties, all that kind of stuff. Just a bit of the home touch as well. See mates, catch up, people I haven't seen in essentially 2 years, which is mental when you think about it.
So let's have a look at those semi-finals then, Johnny. You were in Paris for them, even though they were in Lille, but you were working on them.
Strangely, yeah.
So what did you make of them overall?
I thought 3 teams were phenomenal. One team almost looked like they showed up for a kick around at the park and didn't quite get it right at all and got it really badly wrong. But otherwise, Toulouse, Bordeaux, La Rochelle, what an advert for French rugby. The sort of the tempo, the physicality, the brutality for most of it, and also how they set about and they wanted to play. Just incredible games of rugby, really, by 3 teams. And any one of them could have been finalist. Ultimately, 2 go through. But the real disappointment for Racing 92, who just did not get it right mentally. And you could see even at halftime, you could see Travers going absolutely bananas in the change room, trying to get them to change their mentality and the way they played, and they still didn't react, and it just came apart. But generally, 3 teams that were phenomenal. Really enjoyed watching them, really enjoyed working at the games, and a great advert for the top 14. It was really cool.
Why do you think that was with Racing, Benji? Because we've seen them, they've come so close in the Champions Cup in the last 5 seasons or so. Top 14, they've reached a load of semi-finals, but not quite got there apart from 2016. So is there just a final piece of the jigsaw missing for them?
Well, let's not forget that if you rewind the clock a little bit, the duo of Laurent Labitte, Laurent Travers, who's been this partnership coaching, that's been probably the most successful partnership in terms of coaching in French rugby, through Montauban and Castres and Racing and stuff, has been split. Last year, Laurent Labitte joining the French coaching system. And there was always a question of how is Laurent Travers going to adjust? You know, how are they going to pick up the pieces and then readjust and then go again? I think Racing is still there, right? Johnny's right. On that particular game, they seemed like they were nowhere. The first half against Stade Francais, they put 35 points on them, and you're thinking, woof, they are pretty lethal, right? Once you have the likes of Finn Russell and Vakatawa and now Gaël Ficou and Teddy Thomas and all those kids, they're pretty incredible. Simon Zibo and Courtney Bill and all that. But it's true that they just got overwhelmingly, overtaken by La Rochelle. And La Rochelle, when they're on, they just inspire so much brute force. They really remind me of Exeter.
Freakish,
potentially not as fast and not as explosive as Bordeaux could be from time to time. Yeah, Toulouse are generally all the time, but they've got this rouleau compresseur. I don't know that the mechanical sort of tank sort of attitude about they're going to roll on you at some point.
Relentless.
And yeah, relentless sort of wave of power coming one after the other. And they're quite extraordinary at it. And when they get it right, they just suffocate you from the first to the last minute. And it was just a matter of never letting Racing, even breathe a tiny bit, and showing that there was never even a close contest of saying, are they going to win or not? It was just by how many points. And so for Racing, again, maybe the fact that Laurent Labitte isn't there, maybe the fact that there's a new generation of players taking, the lead. You talk about Teddy Bobigny and Kolingar and Boris Palou and all those kids who are mega talented, but it takes a bit of time, to take on from the older generation who was there before and performed on and is probably renowned for its knowledge of top 14 playoff and all that. But then it's funny because after the game, Jackie Lorenzetti, who obviously is not... doesn't keep his sa langue dans sa poche. I'm speaking. His tongue in his mouth, in his pocket. I don't know what you said. Whatever. Doesn't hold back words. Was like, things has got to change. So he said that Laurent Travers was not going to be any of the issue. He's still the man and in power and all that. But he started putting back on the table that he reckons that maybe he went through a little bit of too much of a stretch in terms of luxury, where he put his team and his players in such a comfortable arena. When you talk about the Euronibus, I think he's especially talking about the training center, which is quite spoken about because the team room, meeting room, no, it's not meeting room, but the players room and the eating room that they've got at it looks like a 5-star hotel.
It's a palace.
Stunning. It's stunning. It doesn't have any gold ornaments, whatever, but you really feel like you're in a modern, really chic, sort of mega hyped first class airport lounge.
You feel like you're going to a football complex. It's like, yes, what I imagine if I was going to Barcelona or Arsenal or Man City.
Yeah.
It's that level of standard. It's proper cool.
So all the boys are they're on big sofas and stuff. There's always, through criticisms about really it's not great in terms of image and stuff. I don't believe in it, but he's trying to find any excuse to say that's why they're not doing well. So things are going to change. There is going to be, because usually he always backs his words with an action. Sometimes it's not the best ones, but I think he's that type of leader where somebody's got to die, something's got to change, somebody's going to get rumbled. He's also made some pretty big statements in terms of players leaving, staying, whatever. They're going to looking for an extra lock or whatever. That's what he said. Listen, long story short, things will happen. Racing will be back next year. I don't think they're far off from being one of the top teams, but they just weren't there for this year.
They're going through a little transition as well. And to be fair, they're one of the best teams. And again, it's come from nothing, but promoting through their academy and promoting youth. They've been phenomenal. Like, look through the people that played at the weekend. Bobigny, Gomez Sa, on the bench, you had Henri Colombe as well. Like, the depth of talent that they're generating and pushing through that academy is where the big change is, which is massively positive, and they can't change that. The thing for me at the weekend was it wasn't anything to do with the quality of the people or what they've produced over the past few years was on the pitch. It was the decision making and how they set out. It was the attitude. So it was almost like they thought they were at their home stadium, it's dry, and let's just go and try chip kicks out of our 22, play our way out, and they just completely unraveled. They just it was like they hadn't taken into account the fact that it was pissing with rain, which is bizarre because like Finn's from Glasgow. Do you know what I mean? Finn Russell's played for Glasgow for 8-9 years, the same way I did. He grew up in that. He knows how to play those conditions. But as a team, they just didn't front up, or they didn't try to play those conditions properly at all. It looked like the biggest brain fart on that sort of stage I've seen in a long, long time. And that's why it was so bizarre to watch, because they've got the coaches, they've got the players in key positions. As the game went on and the bench came on, you could see they were short in a few. Their scrum got absolutely pumped by La Rochelle. Like in terms of power, they got absolutely smashed. As soon as Bobigny went off and Kevin Le Guen came on, they couldn't win the line out again. He's really struggling with the throwing. It's like their set piece completely went, then their heads went and discipline went, and all these things compounded, and the game just ran away from them. I think then it was 19-6, but it could have been more. And La Rochelle were just dogged, pragmatic, played a simple territory game, squeezed Racing, put them under pressure, and they absolutely exploded. So really, I think as a club, they're at the forefront of everything that's great about French rugby, and what they've done in the academy, the infrastructure that they've got is a place you want to go and be part of. Yes, it might be comfortable, but it looks like an amazing place to work as well. And I'd imagine they'd be challenged mentally by the coaching staff that they have every day, that they don't seem like people that mess about either. So like, I don't think it's going to be massive changes from what he was saying, but it just, in that game, they just got it completely wrong. And it was really bizarre to watch, really bizarre.
And so given everything you've said about the two Laurents being separated, Benji, and that backline, you know, the names in it, Finn Russell, Fiku, Vakatawa, Teddy Thomas, Kurtley Beale, and not being able to do anything. Obviously, we praise John O'Gibbs and Ronan O'Gara, as we always do with La Rochelle, but is that maybe an addition that we're going to see this summer for Racing, another coaching addition?
Yeah, but who, how, when, you know, is potentially, yes, but you need somebody to be able to bring something to the table. I really do feel that in my mind that it is, like Johnny said, it's this young generation of players. There's also this back row who just got picked up by the French team, Diallo.
He's amazing.
Who everybody raves about, and then Jordan Joseph, who's on the bench most of the time, but who's really got a lot of quality. These guys just need a bit of time. They need to get there. Let's not forget they're losing against La Rochelle. La Rochelle are shit hot. La Rochelle are unbeatable at the moment. La Rochelle squeeze the life out of you because they're so intense and they know how to bring you there. La Rochelle had a beautifully organized strategy against Racing, probably conducted and cooked up by Ronan O'Gara. La Rochelle were driven by an hunger and a desire to beat them, most probably boosted by Brice Dulin, the fullback, playing against his former club, who was desperate to beat them. So, you know, there's a lot of elements also that are more than just the 1F game. So give them a bit of time for once. Let's not be too French, Mr. Jackie Lorenzetti. You know, give them a bit of time to grow. And the success that you had 6 months ago, saying, and Yannick Nyonga, when we had him on the show, you know, highlighting those number of guys that get picked up by the French team now, that are from the area. You only mentioned a couple, but there's like 20 now in the 35-man squad that are from the area of Paris for the last 6-7 years.
Amazing.
That's going to pay its dividends somewhere, somehow, in the very near future.
And let's have a look at the other semi then. Toulouse beat Bordeaux. And how big a part did that red card play? And it was a horrible collision, wasn't it, on Romain Ntamack? Was it as bad as Lavani Bottia's in the Champions Cup final? Worse, Johnny?
No, worse.
Worse in some respects, in that it was much quicker and it was a head-on-head. But in terms of intent, way less. Like, as an accidental head collision, it just... Look, it was a good read. That's the bad thing. It was a good defensive read by Soutini to rush up, shut down the play. But at the speed that he's come up, the intention to close down and almost shut down the pass as well and go ball and all, he's almost forgotten where... It looks like he's almost forgotten where to place his head because it's gone so quickly, or he's forgotten that Romain Ntamack's head is also there in play. And look, that's one of the worst collisions in terms of speed and intensity that I've seen on a rugby pitch. It was horrible to watch live. And just the way Romain Ntamack fell as well, the way his head and neck, and how quickly he was out. So it was just amazing to see him after the game, like, give the thumbs up. He was giving interviews after the game, which was a really encouraging sign. Obviously, he's going to be nowhere near a rugby pitch this week. But look, it was horrible, a horror collision. Did it have a massive impact on the game? I honestly felt that Bordeaux could have gone on even with that red card, and they probably could have won the game. There's a couple of decisions you can look at. Sort of 5 minutes to go, they get a penalty right in front of the sticks, where I thought Cheslin Colby could have been sin-binned as well for sort of cynical killing of the ball. Wasn't sin-binned, and they decided to take the 3 points. At that stage, they were 6 points behind, and they had Toulouse under pressure at maul time, at line-out time. They were winning their ball. They were all over them line-out time, and I thought, really that could be stick or bust. But you've got 14 men, you're a man down. Do you kick to the corner now and go for the win? Or do you have to come back in another 2.5 minutes and try and get the territory again, which we saw was so hard to win through the game because both teams execute things so nicely, and get another dab at 3 points, which was hard to get. So, look, I thought Bordeaux, it was almost as if they announced they're here to stay. The way they play the game, the way they go about their business, the way they are as a squad, led by Christophe Urios, who I've had as a coach, he's great. I think they're here for the sort of foreseeable. You'll see them semi-final, final time in the Champions Cup and top 14 over the next 2-3 seasons, which was the big positive. But ultimately, there wasn't that much between the two sides. Really dogged territorial battle. Great game of rugby, really intense. The breakdown was ridiculous. Line-out was ridiculous. It almost couldn't get going because defensively the players were so good, if that makes sense. So again, a really enjoyable game of rugby. And Bordeaux, I think, will count themselves unlucky almost.
And a bit different to the Racing situation we've just spoken about, Benji, but Bordeaux and Christophe Urios must be maybe cursing their luck is a bit too strong, but that red card, obviously, at that point in the game when they just got themselves back into it, you go back to the Champions Cup and all the COVID distractions they had to deal with. Last season, they were leading the top 14 when it was canned. They're close, aren't they?
Hey, first qualification in their history, a semi-final of Champions Cup. First qualification in the playoffs at all in top 14. Yes, they are hungry. Yes, they want more. Yes, there's no time to wait. And I agree with that. Christophe said it before the game. We're very hungry. We've got a big appetite. Ha ha ha! Because he weighs 2,000 kgs, and then that you want. It's there for the taking. We might as well. And I agree with that. There's no point of saying we're going to build over 10 years and this and this and that when you've got an opportunity. And I think he had the taste of blood a little bit. Toulouse are massively at the end of the whatever they have left in the tank. You could tell they're scrapping for everything. But remember, I said that to you guys. That's what the Toulouse boys were telling me before the Champions Cup final against La Rochelle. They were already very, very tight. Second rows were falling over. They have no more tight heads. They have a couple of little injuries there that were complicated. They just lost Romain Tamac. We don't know how many second rows they're going to have. Jérôme Kano played lock at the weekend. They are in trouble. They definitely are in trouble. But there's only 80 minutes left. So you don't know what can go on. But to answer your question about Bordeaux, I think past the anger, the disappointment, the bitterness of being so close, they will be very proud of what they've achieved, of the direction that they're taking, of the dynamism of the whole entire club. The fact that finally this sort of 2-year season came to an end. If you forget about last year where they were in the league, in the lead, now you can realize that 24 months later, you've done a semi-final Champions Cup. It's never happened before. You've done a semi-final of top 14, never had done before. They're going to keep relatively sort of the entirety of their group for next year. They're only going to start building, and they're finally going to have some public back. Hallelujah, touch wood, back in September, and they're going to have 25,000 people all there. So the dynamic is absolutely there. I actually believe. And it's not just to see sort of a glass half full, but if they'd won something this year, I could have easily see them fall off the cliff and not build for a long, long time. Now they're going to stay hungry. They're going to get in there and they're going to realize that they're good, yes, but they didn't lose just a semi. They lost the last game against Toulouse, where Toulouse had nothing to lose for the last game. They've been sloppy those last couple of weeks. Christophe got angry. The players will a little get angry. I remember Rémi Lamra, who never gets angry, saying that they were horseshit. So they're just not there. It's not just a one-off intercept try that makes you miss it last minute. It's not that. They got repeatedly beaten by teams and repeatedly knocked out. So it's more than just a one-off game, and I think they'll realize that very, very quick. But definitely, the future is bright in Bordeaux.
Well, we can have a chat now with a man who played the final game of a long and illustrious career, with Racing in the semi-finals this weekend. It's France international back row Antonie Claassen joins us. How are you?
How's it, guys? How's everyone doing? Thanks for the introduction. Nice to be here. Nice to see everyone. Nice to see you, Benji, Johnny, Tim.
We are well. We are well. Obviously, you'd have loved to have bowed out in the final this weekend, and the result didn't go the way you'd have wanted. But just talk us through the emotions on Friday night.
Yeah, I think first of all, I think Rochelle just they annihilated us. They were physically so much more dominating than we were. They were more physical. They deserved their win. So we were not really up for the challenge of Friday evening. So, and personally, I think I thought my last game was against Brive, and I thought that was me done for the season or for my career. And then obviously Yotanga got injured, and then got picked for the semi-finals. So it was that was a nice shock to have. And obviously I wanted to end a little bit differently, but at the end of the day, it's just the way it is. And we lost in the semi-final against a better team.
Talk us through that game against Brive. So for people that, again, we have a lot of English listening people listening to this that maybe didn't see the game, but obviously your first club in France was Brive, last club Racing. I saw the game. You had one Brive sock on, one Racing sock on. Really good send-off. Talk us through exactly what the two clubs did for you and how enjoyable that was.
I think I'm getting goosebumps as I think about it now. It's very, very special. I think me having arrived in France in 2007, unknown from South Africa, never really played any big rugby, and Brive gave me a chance to play for them, and they gave me some confidence. And after only a couple of months at the club, I became captain of the team, and I ended up staying 5 years. And it's a team and a club that gave me so much and offered me so much over my time in France. So I've got so much respect for that club, and especially the history and the people and just the way that they've built up the club and to where it is today. I mean, it's one of the toughest teams to play against, especially in Brive. So it's so having started in Brive and played my last game against Brive at Racing for Racing. It was very, very special. I think just the way that Brive and Racing too, just how they approached the game and made it very special for me was something very special and something I would always remember. So I think Simon Gillam and myself, Simon Gillam is the Brive's president. We've always had a good relationship, and we've always kept in touch. And I just sent a message like, yeah, I got a good surprise for you. My last game might be against Brive this weekend. And he's like, oh, that's brilliant. So I think we might have to do something special. So I think he got into contact with Jackie Lorenzetti and the president of Racing, and Jackie said, I've got a good idea. Why doesn't he play in two Brive socks? And someone was like, yeah, that's a brilliant idea. And apparently you can't really do that because it's difficult for the refs to see who's in the look at the socks and stuff. So I arrived at warm-up, and they told me you can play one sock Brive, one sock Racing. And so I was like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. This is really amazing and so special. So just everything that went with it, and it's really going to stay with me for the rest of my life.
And the socks did the trick, didn't they? Because didn't you knock over a kick at goal?
Well, I think I'm one of the only players. I'm not going to say the only, but I might be one of the only players in professional rugby that retires with 100% kicking rate. So yeah,
take it.
Look, I'm not going to lie. It was stressful as hell. It was right in front of the post, even though it was right in front of the sticks. I couldn't get the ball into the tee. It was like one of those tees I'm used to. I grew up as a boy, just placing sand and putting my ball on and kicking it like that. So they gave me one of these tees lying to the front. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't get the ball down. I'm starting to shake and stuff. So at least it was in front of the sticks, so I popped it over. So it was pretty cool.
Mate, to be honest, this whole thing was organized as a credit to the bloke that you are. I think you've got a great reputation as a player. That's one thing. But everybody, you know, when you come to when you leave a club of Brive where everybody claps you off, when you leave a club of like Racing, everybody claps you off. It's just the way you give your heart out on that pitch. You build those connections. It's just a good farewell. So you were probably way too humble to explain it that way. But to be fair, that's what the way that everybody saw it, and we're happy for you you got the recognition of just being a good bloke. Big smile on his face, always positive on the pitch, and just gave it all out. So you can be maxi proud of that.
No, thanks, but I really appreciate it. I mean, I think the image of myself on the field is not always the same guy that's off the field. I mean, I'm pretty stubborn on the field, and I give 120%. I play the game to win, and I spoke to Donica Ryan actually during the week, and we played one game. I can't remember if I was still at Cast or if I was still Racing. Anyway, we played against Munster, and he's like, on the ruck, and I was on the bench, and I came on the field. So obviously being frustrated and stuff, and Skin was probably lying on the wrong side of the ruck, and he just said I just punished him in the nuts or something. I'm like, no, I'm so sorry, I really didn't mean that. But I mean, it's what happens on the field. I mean, I give 100%. I always play, and I play for the jersey. I play to win, and off the field, I'm a lot more chilled and relaxed. And I mean, I've been so privileged to have lived my passion and my dream for the past, especially 14 years in France. So I'm so blessed and happy to have obviously accomplished and everything that has happened, but just to have experienced and having come to France and just experiencing the culture and the language and just meeting so many great guys. It's been absolutely amazing.
We mentioned Brive. It's been 15 years, hasn't it, since you first moved over? So I say it's only been a few days since Friday, but has it sunk in yet? Because it was a big call to move over to France at that stage. You said you had no kind of rugby at this level until you moved over, and then it's been a hell of a success, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think my wife asked me yesterday, has it really sunk in yet that you finished? I'm like, I don't really think so, because at the moment you're still kind of at the club and you're still with the boys and you're still in the WhatsApp chat groups and all those type of things. But I think once you quit those groups and the guys start getting to training again, I think that's where it's really going to sink in. You like realize, goodness me, it's like, it's kind of finished now. But I mean, yeah, it's just 14 years goes by in the nick of an eye. It goes by so quickly. I mean, you two guys can vouch for that. It goes by so quickly, and you don't really want it to end. But I mean, everybody goes through it. It's going to happen to everyone. So you have to be ready for it. You have to accept it and move on, have new objectives. And the life is long afterwards, and it's beautiful. So it's pretty cool.
So what's the next step? You mentioned earlier off air, you're talking about an MBA and stuff. What's the next step?
Yeah, I think, well, obviously, my dad has been very influential in my life, obviously, but obviously my sporting career too, because he also played rugby and he played in Marmande in late 70s. So he just fell in love with the French culture when he was over here for 5 or 6 months in late 70s and the language. And like, I think France is probably like his second team. So I remember in the 80s, 90s, when you watched the Five Nations, he used to have his beret on and smoke his pipe and Bien Les Bleus, and it was pretty cool. But so he's always been kind of installed into me. Studies is very important. So straight out of school, I went to study, and then I came to France, took a bit of a break, and then I started studying again with Proval and Toulouse Business School, and I did my master's. And I think obviously it's important to prepare for the future, and I think the logical step for me was to do an MBA, and that was my dream, my objective. So I've been working towards that, and I applied to HEC, which is here in Paris, to do an MBA, and I got accepted, which is pretty cool. So it's a huge privilege, but it's nice to be accepted. But now the hard work starts. I mean, it's going to be years of tough work and lots of long hours and a change of scenery. But I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it.
And do you want to do something completely different now then, or do you want to stay involved in rugby?
Yeah, I think straight away, I think the MBA is going to be the most important, because it's going to take a lot of my time, a lot of effort, and so I think at the moment that's probably going to be the main objective. But I mean, I've always been so passionate about rugby. It's something that I've loved since I was a little boy. So I mean, I've got two small boys as well. He's 27 and 5, the two boys. So they love rugby too. So I mean, I will always be there for them and help them. And who knows, one day just get back into training or coaching or something. So I mean, I'll never close the door for coaching. So firstly, I'm just going to try and get this MBA done and get the next 2 years behind my back, and then from there we can take it to.
But playing is definitely done, because all the French press has been saying that you have to go and sign with the Ficou brothers down in La Seine-sur-Mer, which is a little club next to Toulon. But that's definitely not happening. You're definitely done.
I mean, I was in discussions with them, and there was an opportunity to get on there. But I mean, like I said, for me at the moment, like the MBA is very important. It would have been difficult for me to move my whole family and be away from home so often, because obviously I have to be present for my MBA classes. So obviously, the transitional phase, from you guys would know that the transitional phase from being a professional rugby player to retiring and kind of, not going to say having nothing, but having to kind of reinvent yourself and find yourself, I think it's not always an easy one. So I think it's important to kind of make it as soft as possible and make the landing as soft as possible. And I think if we had to move my whole family, for my family would have been very, very complicated. So we decided to stay in Paris, and like I said, the MBA is gonna be the priority.
Judging by the stress that's etched on Benji's face every week in Oxford, it's not easy doing an MBA. You got some tips for Anthony, Benji?
I don't know. Make sure you keep some of those special vitamins that racing give you from time to time, because you're gonna need every single one of them. Keep that high performing sort of attitude as you have as a professional sportsman. You're gonna be surrounded by people. I'm the Sunday jogger that all of a sudden on the Monday wants to prepare for the Olympics. Well, you and it's the same for you, man. You're gonna jump in that class where you're gonna be surrounded by absolute freaks of nature in terms of work intensity.
Yeah.
And you think that you've got big nuts, but bloody hell, there's some small people have got big nuts too in that department. But listen, I think it's a phenomenally good choice. Well done on you to take on that challenge. You'll see that rugby has actually taught you a lot more than you think. There's a lot of things where you're going to be far behind. There's a lot of things you'll be surprised where you're far ahead from all of them. And that's no disrespect, but that's the reason why we get those pathways also to the MBAs, because they want that diversity of thought and process and all that. So it's just going to be absolutely phenomenal for you. If you do it properly, it's a proper stepping stone for the rest of your life. And I'm sure you're going to kill it.
Yeah, thanks, man. I think it's pretty nerve-wracking. I think you're going to be in class with guys that have got like 15, 20 years of experience, and you come there, rugby players, like, what do you know of business or something like that? So you have to try and compete with them now. So like you said, we bring a different kind of aspect and to the ball game. So hopefully it will go okay. So it's just about management.
For sure.
And in terms of your career highlights, then looking back, we'll give you a chance to reflect now. You obviously won the top 14 with Racing and Cast, but was that one with Cast against Toulon in 2013? Was that a particular highlight? Because no one really gave you guys a chance, did they? And it was the first title for the club in 20 years, I think.
Yeah, I think Benji, you can vouch for that as well. I think your first one is always very special. I think if I think about it now, and if I look back at it, I mean, the year before I was at Brive and we were relegated to Bordeaux, and I decided very early on in the season I was going to go to Cast. So having left Brive and Bordeaux and going to Cast was kind of a whole new eye-opening experience. And it was, I kind of walked into a team that was well established, that have played some playoff games in the previous few years, and they're a team that was very solid. I mean, I went to replace Chris Massoy, who went to Toulon at that time. So I went there kind of without any pressure. I just felt like, I could actually, that weight off my shoulders of sometimes that brief that I felt of being captain and leader of the team. And obviously when results didn't go away, I kind of felt I took it a lot upon me, and I felt like I was kind of responsible for some of the defeats and the results of the club. And having gone to Cast, it was just kind of that weight was off my shoulders, kind of felt to a certain extent. And I could just go out and play. I could just go out and enjoy myself and just be who I was actually. And I must say, we had one hell of a squad and team that year. It was just like the team spirit, and the team was absolutely amazing. And I think obviously we were the underdogs, and nobody gave us a chance of actually beating the superstars of Toulon. And on the day, we were just on it for 80 minutes long, and it was absolutely amazing. So I think that the whole 2012 to 2013 season for me was very special. So yeah, that was a good memory, I must say. But obviously you can't take away the 2016 Racing Toulon in Barcelona, as well with 14 men in Barcelona in front of 100,000 people. It's amazing. I didn't think anything like that would happen again.
And Johnny, Anthony mentioned there, he replaced Chris Marceau. You replaced Anthony, didn't you, in Cass?
I did. He left as champion, and then I arrived and we finished 12th, which I think shows the quality of the two players right there. We need to go no further. Cheers, Tim.
For sure.
No, I think they were still so hungover that year. They enjoyed the party so much that we struggled. We never really got started that year that I arrived. But geez, like you said, it's some place though. It's a great little rugby town, great community. They absolutely love it, get right behind it. A real mix of farmers and locals supporting their club. And it's probably the most fun I've had at a rugby club, because there's nothing else to do. It's so isolated that every single weekend you're having a barbecue with the boys, a couple of drinks, families all mixing together. It's probably the best club in terms of mixing and social aspect that I experienced in France. I absolutely loved my time at Cast, even though the rugby wasn't that great at that particular time. Probably your fault, Anthony, but great club.
How long did you play there, Ben? 2 years?
1 year, 11 months.
So you know about it as well. It is a baseball town, and they're so passionate. And like you said, there isn't much to do, but that's where like that whole family type of environment was created, and the guys spent so much time together that you kind of knew your mates alongside you, like in and out, basically. So that's why I said the team spirit we had for those 2 years was absolutely amazing. Like especially there after we were champion, we also struggled coming into the new season. Obviously, you got like a bit of a champion hangover, and you see yourself maybe greater as what you're, better as than what you are. And so we also struggled getting into the season, but after a while, things just started clicking again. The guys started finding their feet, and we obviously played the final again the next year, which we lost. But I mean, it's still a feat to play 2 finals in a row, especially for a small town such as Castres.
Well, I was going to say, it was when you were at Castres that you were first picked for the French national team as well. So what, after having come over at such a young age, your dad having had that relationship with the country in the 70s as well, which is quite strange. What was it like initially to be picked up for the French national team as a South African living over here? It must have been incredible.
Yeah, I must say it was absolutely amazing. I think there was one stage, I think Mark Livermore, he's like, I think it was a bit of a misunderstanding, but they just asked him, who would you want to pick, or who do you kind of appreciate as a player? And they mentioned my name, but at that stage, I think, I don't know, I wasn't ready yet. I was still too young. And then I just kind of thought, it's never going to happen. It's the way it is. And obviously being a foreigner and France arriving like this. And I was just enjoying my time in France. And I remember I was on the couch probably trying to catch up on some sleep that I lost the previous weekend. And Monday morning, and I got this phone call. I'm like, yo, who's this number? And it's Philippe St. Andre. He phoned me. He's like, he started speaking English. I'm like, stop speaking English, speaking French. And he's like, are you ready for the French, for the English? I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to go. He said, well, congratulations, you've been picked. So yeah, that was amazing. I straight away phoned my dad, and yeah, it was a special moment between me and my dad. Very emotional. It was very, very cool. Very, very nice.
And you were there, weren't you, Benji, for Anthony's first cap?
I was, yeah. I was. Anthony and I have got a good mate in common, Gerard Voslo, who was sort of a little bit of Anthony's, not mentor, but like big brother type of mate when they played in the back row combination of Brief together. And so obviously when Gerard came to Clermont with me, Anto would come from time to time and stuff. So I was delighted to help. He doesn't need any help with translation. His French has always been fantastic, but it was just a bit of a secure moment. Sometimes we would speak English together. So, to like, oh, give me the ins and outs of what should I do? What shouldn't I do? Because he wanted to fit in. He wanted to do things properly. He wanted to make sure that he was showing, the best side of him, because the French team at the time was in transition sort of type of group. There was the old fellas that were gone with all the generation, but there's also a modern type of rugby that was coming in. There's quite a fair few non-French born that were coming in, and we were definitely trying to find our feet. So everything was a little bit up in the air. And I remember, I mean, you'll speak about it, Anto, if you want, but the initiation ceremony was absolutely hilarious, because we come this thing where every new guy that comes to camp needs to do an initiation. It was good because it was after my first cap. I had to do nothing. There was like a little speech or a joke that you need to do. It was awesome. And then after that, it was like a proper thing. Sing a song, imitate somebody, tell a story, do a trick, whatever you want. And Anto was super keen. He was like, so tell me, no, not super keen, but wanted to make sure that he showed that he's put an effort, right, for the team, that he wanted to do it proud. And so I was like, what should I do? I don't know, sing a song, do a sketch, whatever. In the end, it was a sketch. And I remember, Otto, you rocked up, dressed up as a female tennis player. And you rock up and you throw yourself on the floor, which is carpeted floor in the dining room table. And then you start imitating whatever, a tennis match. And we were all laughing, whatever. Or with ping pong, I can't remember what you were doing. And at the end, you leave and everybody's laughing. And you look at me and I was like, oh, you okay? You're like, shit. I said, what's wrong? Are you pissed off? No, I burned my knees. And I looked at both your knees. He had big red plaques on there, but he burned them to blood, whilst he just slid on that carpet floor at first, but then didn't say anything and kept on doing his sketch or his imitation. I can't remember what it was. And I remember laughing because I was thinking, oh, no, come on. You're not pissed off about what you've done. It was good. He's like, no, I just burned my knees, mate. Look at the state of me.
Yeah, look, that was very, very stressful. I think it was always nice having been over there, because it's like a familiar face that I kind of knew. And if I wanted to know something, I could always, like, knock on his door, just go ask him for some advice and stuff, because he's been there for a while. And I think when you said it was a transitional phase for the French team at the time, and it was pretty difficult, because it kind of felt sometimes that, like, thinking back at it now, you couldn't really express yourself as a player and try and do things, because you knew that if you didn't play well that weekend, or if you tried something and then come off, then you're definitely not going to be there the next week. And that's what made it sometimes so difficult to kind of be the player that you are, express yourself. So it was a transitional phase, but that sketch was so stressful. I think because I didn't know what to do. I was like, what can I do? And I saw this, Djokovic is always imitating people. I just thought, well, that's pretty funny. He was imitating, I think, Antonie Claassen at one stage. I don't know what it was. So I just kind of got like a short skirt, or I just put a towel around my waist as a short skirt and everything as a female tennis player, and did all the shouting and screaming, got some ping pong balls, and I think I can't even remember, I hit somebody in the face, and that kind of went down well. But as well, like I said, I burnt my knees, so that was so stressful, but I was glad it was done afterwards, that was for sure.
That's commitment, that is, going through carpet burns for the cause. I like it.
And explaining the carpet burns when you get home to your missus as well. She's like, what have you been doing? No, just my initiation with the French team, honestly.
Yeah, sure. She would have believed me.
And over the course of 15 years, I imagine the coaching, the professionalism in French rugby has come a long way. From moving to South Africa, there's going to be lots of differences, but you spent most of that time, the last 14, 15 years, playing under Laurent Trevert, haven't you? And we spoke about him a bit earlier on the show. What's he like to play for? Is he very different to the kind of stereotype that most people have about French coaches?
Yeah, I think because we've been together for so long, and I've played underneath for so long. I think I haven't had many coaches, except for some at Brive, where Hugo Moller was there, and then at Cast. Yeah, so they were basically the whole time. So he's very organized, and he wants to make sure everything works according to plan. So he doesn't want anything coming from the exterior or the outside, coming like throwing things around. And he likes everything being organized, well organized, and then everybody knows their roles. So I mean, he's very professional that way. So I think that's why racing has been doing so well over the past couple of years and kind of playing playoffs all the time, because it is a very professional setup, and everybody is expected to know their roles and know it off by heart and exactly. So yeah, it's a pity that we haven't kind of made that step and won more finals and more championships. But yeah, he's a very good coach, and like sometimes the details to him is very important. So yeah.
And to take us back to that semi, we saw at halftime him going nuts, saying, "Look, occupation, so territory, second half, change things around." Obviously, didn't quite go to plan. You talked about the physicality, but there must have been a frustration as well with the lack of field position, the ability to get out of your own 22 and just be part of the game.
I think if you look at I was at the warm up, and I told Mike Prendergast before the game, I was like, listen, Mike, having a look at the warm ups, where they're kicking the ball in the kickoffs, they're kicking it deep onto the 5 meters close to the touchline. Don't you want us just to pass the ball and then just kick it out straight away? Because I mean, that we're going to be under a lot of pressure, and especially with the physicality, and they're going to try to keep us in our own half. And so yeah, we got a little bit caught in our own half, and we maybe tried to play a little bit too much, especially in the first half. And yeah, that probably cost us, and we left a lot of energy on the field in the first half. And like I said, with the team being so physical as La Rochelle, it's difficult to come back. And if you're not playing in their half, you got to go like skeleton. When we got into the half, every single time we had our planned moves or our planned starting moves that we wanted to do, skeleton would just come and just destroy everything. So there was no way for us to actually just get on the front foot and trying to get into the game. So it was very, very difficult. Yeah, it's one of those games. Hopefully they can learn from it for the future, because I think it's about time they're still winning some trophies again.
We were talking just before you came on about some of the young kids that are there. So Baptiste Chouzenu, who I played with at Bayonne, Tanga, Diallo, and obviously now retiring. You've seen all these young kids come through the sort of academy process line that's churning them out. And obviously they will learn these lessons and go on to win things for Racing 92 in the years to come. But what do you make? You've obviously had a big role as an elder statesman now, as we cruelly put it, in helping these young kids like Diallo, Tanga, Chouzenu coming through. What do you make of the next crop that's coming through, the new generation at Racing?
Yeah, I think it's very positive, especially for Racing for the next couple of years. They've got a very, very young side at the moment. Obviously, little lack of experience in certain places, but I mean, that would come with time. So hopefully, like I said, hopefully they would have learned especially from the loss in the Championship against Exeter that we just lost, which is gutted about that. And then obviously the other Championship we lost against Bordeaux, and then our semi-final again. So it's in professional rugby or professional sports, but especially in rugby, if you don't adapt, if you don't learn as quick as possible, you're never going to make it. So that's why the guys, especially those young guys, they would have to be able to adapt and learn as quick as possible, not to make the same mistakes, and maybe to learn to work under the pressure and play under pressure, because it happens so quickly. Games go by so fast, and it's sometimes a split-second decisions which can win or lose a game for you. So there's so much talent in racing; it is absolutely ridiculous. So it's a way they have to nurture them, and obviously, hopefully, for the future, not just for racing, but for the French team too, that they can have a long career at racing, but for the French team too.
Well, I'm sure they've learned a hell of a lot from you, Anthony, and commiserations on the result of the weekend. But congratulations on a long and great career in France, and good luck with the NBA. Benji will tell you, hard work. Look at his face.
Man, you're gonna smash it. You're gonna smash it. Just keep that energy. Keep the. I think I can't remember who was that kept on giving you the nickname of Le Petit Caniche, the little boy. It was half was the haircut, but half I'm sure was just that contagious energy that you constantly have about doing a million things at a time, and just keep on using that drive. Keep a big smile on your face. I think you'll realize in a couple of months that you can be very proud of what you've done in rugby, and the next step is just gonna be cruise. So go well, mate.
Yeah, thanks guys. I appreciate it. It's probably only going to sink in after a couple of months' time, but I must say it's it's life. It's the way it is. I'll probably look back at it in a couple of months' time and kind of realize what was achieved and what was done. But keep those fond memories and over the past 14 years. Yeah.
Congratulations, Anthony. Thanks ever so much for coming on.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Hell of a career, eh?
Man, he's a top boy. He's a top boy. He didn't even mention that him and Gerard Vosto actually played for the French Babas also. And that's another recognition of how good a bloke he is, how well integrated he was. His French is spot on. Like you obviously didn't hear it today, but he speaks absolutely perfectly. So when you become captain of a club like Brive, when you go into the French team, you fit in well. When you're well respected, when you play for the French Babas, it's a different angle. It's the conversation that us three have every single week of who's made it in France and why, and who hasn't when you're a foreigner from the get-go. So I think he'll always be South African in his heart, but he feels dual nationality and whatever, very proud to be French, and he's done really well. And I didn't know about his MBA. I think it's I'm not going to say it's a shit choice. It's a great idea, but I see him fit into the curiosity of trying something and keeping at it, and I'm sure he's going to do great.
And it was a big deal, wasn't it, when he was called up by France? You were obviously there, Benji, but it was in the media. Lots was being written and lots being said about players being called up that weren't born in France. But he was one that seemed to have been accepted a lot for obvious reasons.
Mate, so you compare him to Rory Cocotte, and it's almost the same. Rory Cocotte was the year after, I think, or something like that. But there's loads. Winnie Antonio has never been a problem with the French team, I'm telling you, because he's this big smiling teddy bear who speaks perfect French and who loves France. And you can feel it when somebody speaks about France, behaves about it. That doesn't mean that he's not a Kiwi with a Samoan background, who's still proud of where he's from. It just means that you embrace the culture in which you arrive and you submerge yourself. And that's what Anthony did so well. So he wants to fit in. I actually said, it's a bit mean, I said that we spoke English together. Whenever I spoke English to him, he would always stop me. No, stick to French. He really made the effort. He wanted to prove a point of doing well. So there's a couple of guys like that. There's Danny Cotte, who was the tight end prop for Cas, who just retired also, who's a lovely, lovely bloke who made an effort. And it's just taking that step towards French culture rather than try to impose yourself. And he did beautifully. So it was a big deal. There was an added media pressure about it. You had to perform well, but you had to perform better than anybody else because you were a foreigner. And I think he did it well.
Let's have a look ahead to the top 14 final then. Toulouse beat Bordeaux in the semi-final and La Rochelle in the final in the Champions Cup this season. So are we going to see the same in the top 14, or do you see La Rochelle getting a bit of revenge? Yeah.
Mate, so my deep feeling is that La Rochelle are going to do it. I just feel that Toulouse, unfortunately, is almost going to be unfair, but they're completely au bout du rouleau. Explain that one. I don't know. At the end of the roll, they've got nothing left in the tank. I think they had an extraordinary season, but with guys also that were very much implicated in the Six Nations. you know, so they had key guys who had to play 80 minutes week in, week out. Cyril Bay, Julien Marchand, François Cros is a different sort of angle. Obviously, Antoine Dupont and his mate Ntamak. So they really were overused. They were almost overstretched to play La Rochelle in the Champions Cup final. There's been a red card against Livani Botia. Without the red card, well, it would have been different. I don't know, but it would have been even tighter. And I just feel that this time is just that little bit too much. The freshness of La Rochelle, the impact, the power, the drive, the anger, because they look angry.
Revenge.
You know, it's revenge. They want to finish hard. So I just feel it's definitely not going to be a one-sided game. Obviously not. Toulouse are too good for that. But I just see them, depending on maybe the if there's guys that come back in the second row. And Romain Tamac definitely won't. But can Zach Holmes play? I'm not even sure. So
the issue is he hasn't played for nearly 2 months. So you're more likely to bring Ramos into 10, and if you got Medard back, you stick him back at fullback or somebody else. But if Zach hasn't played, as much as we'd love to see Zach, it's the fact that he hasn't had that game time. But I don't know, I almost agree with you. Like Toulouse, I was going to say, sort of running out of fumes. Like you could see. We're running on fumes now, but you could see at the end of the game, Ugo Mola like singling out Jerome Kano in the huddle and saying, Jerome, one more week. Like you got one more week. And so for me, I think at this stage, in terms of the players you can get on the pitch and how well organized they are and the sort of different motivators, it's tight, man. Like you look at Toulouse, I still don't think they're going to have anybody fit in second row. Rory Arnold went off. Again, Richie Arnold's still injured. Joe Takori, will he pass a fitness test? We still don't know. So you got Jerome Kano as the only available second row. Like
Thibaut
Flamel came off the bench. It's just a different context. Like so Toulouse, the emotional drivers, Jerome Kano's last game, they're also going for a treble. So they've won the Champions Cup. They've won the youth competitions, the Espoir competition. They're now going for the top 14 for another brand. Like that's incredible
technically it would be back-to-back Brennus, right?
Exactly. So to be heading for that is huge. Like people, I get it. They're going to be absolutely wrecked. But if you're going to drag a performance out of yourself emotionally because there's one performance you need to give, it's this week. In saying that, I've just been so impressed by La Rochelle, and I wished that they would have kept 15 men on the field. And we'd seen Botia playing in that game a couple of months back. And again, just to complete a different journey, to have come from Pro D2 to be aiming for their first Brennus, I think it'd be even share and even spoils if La Rochelle take this one. They've been so good to watch both sides, 1 and 2, the whole way through the season. The best rugby by far the two clubs play. And a part of me wants to see Jerome Kano finish with that status because it would just be phenomenal for him to have that finish. But I think as a sort of collective, La Rochelle have just been, like you said, Benji, they've got that revenge factor. They've got something else to fight for. It's the first major step in their history as a club. And I could see them sneaking it as well in Paris this weekend.
But every time I sort of predicted Toulouse slipping up, even with a rotated team, even out of their breath, they always put it out of the bag, and that's how good they are this year. Yeah. On a side note, I have to confess, I didn't really watch the Toulouse Bordeaux game because I was in Cardiff and I commentated for BBC on the England-France under 20s. There was 7 guys from Toulouse, I think, in the under 20s, of those guys who won the Espoirs competition. There's some quality absolutely everywhere. So they're always capable within the academy, within the depth of their squad, of pulling out this guy, this Thibaut Flamand, this Yuyut, whatever. It's 80 minutes of rugby. And you just don't know what can happen given how much of they got this winning attitude about them. But I do agree, Johnny, I see La Rochelle just sneaking it. Both teams deserve it. It would just be beautiful for La Rochelle and John Gibbs' last game to see them sneak that one. That would be one hell of a party in the Charente-Maritime for the whole summer. Wowzers.
1 pint for most of the team, 2 pints for John Gibbs in that party.
Not 2, mate. I think he'll go 12 by 12 this time. He's going to break a new record. The state of arriving in Clermont, I think he's gonna put 25 kgs on or something. Oh my word!
And aside from how stretched Toulouse are and how many injuries they've had recently, the matchup itself, obviously this is the 4th meeting between the two this season. Toulouse have won all of the previous 3. I think they've won 7 of the last 8 games between the two sides. So they've obviously had the edge over La Rochelle historically in recent years. So what do La Rochelle need to do in terms of their approach? Is it just more of the same, or do they need to do something slightly differently to get the edge this time?
I know knowing Jono, he's gonna dissect even more. He probably actually, it would be interesting. Well, we can reach out to a La Rochelle guy to know. I would be surprised, knowing Jono, if they reviewed at all the Champions Cup final, because he's smart enough to say, listen, it's different type of rugby, and even if it's Toulouse La Rochelle, it is Champions Cup rugby. It's refed by an Englishman. It isn't Twickenham for the symbolic or whatever, but it is different type of rugby, and he's so aware now how top 14 is a different beast that he probably didn't even debrief it and just move on, go to the next one. Let's refocus straight away rather than, sort of play with your mind and do mind tricks for the whole time and start seeing dark thoughts. And I reckon he's going to pull that game out now and focus absolutely on the 80 minutes. What happened? They were not far. Remember that final play where they could have scored, should have scored, whatever. They were really not far. I think they realized that when they play, when they keep ball retention, they can be very, very deadly. They need to be patient, they need to be disciplined in their attack, and they need to stop to be so focused on their scrum. I reckon their scrum will, and their line-out platform and driving more, will seriously put Toulouse under threat. But if you remember the Champions Cup final, they had those multiple amount of scrums 5 meters out, chucked it to Levan Ibotia, penalty, and asked for scrum again. It was under the flipping sticks. Take the points, go again. And that's discipline of strategy. So I reckon it will be Jono's attitude to be like, and obviously the red card against Botia, but we've spoken about it enough. But it's going to be stay disciplined in defense, stay disciplined in the attacking strategy, and stay disciplined in the sense that you have to, because it's going to be a tight margin game, you have to score at every opportunity. Don't get too greedy. Don't get overexcited. Just take the points when they come.
I think as well, they'll really have a look at that game from the weekend. They'll look at that Toulouse-Bordeaux game and they'll copycat Christophe Urios' strategy. Like, again, ultra pragmatic. Like you said, take chances when they present themselves. It's almost test match rugby. This is the way to look at it. This isn't regular top 14, game number 4. This is the final. This is test match rugby. How do you control territory? How do you bully Toulouse? Like, if you look at that game at the weekend, how many times did we see Cheslin Colby or Mathis Labelle touch the ball? The answer is practically 0, because they kicked, they pressed, they squeezed, they constricted them, gave them no time or space on the ball, and forced them to play from deep. And I think if you're going to beat Toulouse, you have to do that well. You have to win that kick chase battle. And like we said, like determined, disciplined set piece has to be massive. And then when you get a chance, you have to take your points. So look, I think on the evidence that we saw this weekend of how La Rochelle played, they're absolutely capable of doing this against Toulouse, but it's going to be incredibly tight. Again, the difference of 1 or 2 scores and a huge game of rugby.
And just finally, before we go, as bizarre as it is, before we've had the top 14 final, an inexperienced France squad jetted off on Monday to Australia. And there are 23 uncapped players in there, including Perpignan fullback Melvin Jaminet, who's never played above Pro de Deux.
He's class.
We've spoken about him, haven't we? A prospect, a hell of a prospect. He's in there. I'm sure he's one we've spoken about and we'll speak about again in future. Any other names that you're excited about?
Yeah, well, there's I don't know, Joris Second, the fly half for Stade Francais, who's a kicking machine. Not the most adventurous number 10, and to be honest, with the 3 guys that are ahead of him, it's going to be complicated. But it's good to see them rewarded. Diallo, that back row for Racing, who was a very, very big feature. I'm actually pretty excited, just plain and simply, to see Anthony Claassen to be captain of the French team. It's good to see some guys putting their hand up, being strong, being good, and playing. And just a final mention, because I think he's done an incredible season and we never spoke about him, but wow, did he go through a lot of work, is the tight head for Clermont, Sipili Falatea. So he's only 22 or 23, a French Islander who's come to France 4 or 5 years ago. He's always been an incredible rugby player. So I played with him for 3 years, but every Tuesday I thought he was going to crumble and die, because every scrummaging session I thought we were going to lose him. He was bending in ways that should have not happened to a human body. And I really thought we were going to snap him. It was that bad. But he just stuck into it, and he's a good boy, good kid, a bit of a dancing machine who's always puts a smile on everybody's faces. Fantastic in the loose, very, very powerful, very dynamic, great hands. But then a tight head prop who can't scrummage is complicated. Definitely not a problem of strength, strong as a freaking mountain. but then it was just that scrummaging attitude. And this year, it finally clicked. And it's funny how you always say, front rowers, they're late to mature and blah, 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 blah. That's what it is. Scrummaging is about getting absolutely piled for a number of times, and then you actually realize how it works. And he's played a great season, putting Rabat Slimani on the bench, really converting his big opportunities. Since January, he's got basically the number 3 jersey, and to see him called up there in the French team is fantastic, in a position where there really aren't that many guys, and he fits international rugby like a glove. He's not Daniela Tupu, the Tongan Thor, whatever his name is, Australia yet, but he's almost like that. He's that powerful and that electric. So he could really bring something special.
I was going to say Ibu Diallo at Racing 92. He's been exceptional. The other two that I'm really looking forward to watching are Gaetan Barlow, the hooker at Cast. I'm not sure much you've seen of him, but just, again, electric, dynamic, and good fun to watch. Like, it's rare that we say that about hookers. There's Benji Kaiser and there's Gaetan Barlow. So 2 that I've enjoyed watching. And the other 10, like you mentioned, Yori Seconds, I actually really enjoy watching Antoine Astoy, the guy at Pau, who was rumoured to be going to Montpellier, but Pau stayed up. He's staying there. I've really enjoyed watching him as a 10 as well. Really exciting to watch. The kind of opposite of Yori Seconds. Great hands, good technical ability, great passing, and decent decision maker. So looking forward to seeing him take that next step up too. Like, loads of youngsters getting a chance, which is awesome. Another tight end from Cast as well, Wilfred, I've forgotten his surname. Jeez. Hootpatten, exactly. He is a beast. Like, he was in the academy when I was at Cast. He's come on leaps and bounds. And also Makalu, just because I want to see him get a string of games and cause utter carnage in Australia. I think that'd be class. So yeah, loads of new guys, loads of talent. And that's what summer tours are about, right? Bleeding new guys, seeing what's happening for the next Six Nations, next World Cup, who's going to stake a claim. Should be awesome.
We look forward to seeing how they go. And first, the bigger deal of the top 14 final at the weekend. Thanks, Johnny. Thanks, Benji. A big thanks to all of you guys for listening as well. Make sure you hit subscribe. Leave us a nice review if you can as well. And we will be back with another episode next week. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
See you, fellas.